Dear friends, in this video lecture, we are going to learn about research problems. Identification and definition of the problem, how to do. Research problem is selected either by surveying the literature or by the experience when the researcher comes across a problem in actual situation. It has to be stated in definite and clear terms. There are 6 steps in order to formulate the research problem. First, identification and a definition of the problem, formulation of the hypothesis, clarification of the research procedure, collection of data, analysis and interpretation of data, drawing conclusions, and development of theory and principles. After doing all these things, the research report is now written in sequential form. Formulation of hypothesis. Hypothesis is nothing but a tentative solution of the problem. The relationship between various variables is understood by these hypotheses. They determine the direction of collecting data. How to collect data? The method or technique to be used for collecting data is clarified here. First of all, sample is chosen, and then research tools such as questionnaire, test, interview, etc. are used in the sample. Then analysis and interpretation of data. At this step, data are first arranged in systematic form, then they are analyzed and interpreted in the context of hypothesis. Appropriate quantitative as well as qualitative techniques are used for processing the data. How to draw conclusions and development of theory and principles. This is the final step where conclusions are drawn on the basis of results and laws or principles or developed after that. What are the difficulties involved in the educational research? It involves human beings and the complexities associated with them. It involves a difficulty generalizing from specific studies. It involves problems when imposing sufficient controls to conduct research in educational setting. Then complications it involves when observing in educational settings. A research problem refers to the practical difficulties which a researcher experiences in the context of either a theoretical or practical situation and wants to obtain a solution for the same. Identification of a research problem is a difficult task. The help of an experienced research guide is essential in solving this problem. The researchers themselves should finalize their own topic for their research problem after having a thorough discussion with the experts and the guides. The right selection of the research topic helps the researcher to proceed with his work methodically and step by step. In addition, it helps him avoid unnecessary modifications, omissions, and additions. Hence, it enables the researcher to finish his thesis or dissertation in time at a minimum cost. Selection of the problem. The topic should be familiar. The researcher has to consider his qualifications, own merits and limitations and training, the importance of the subject, the time factor, the cost involved, etc. Regarding the research topic, the researcher has to take into consideration the following points. A controversial subject should not be chosen. The topic should not be too narrow or too vague. What are the important sources of research problems? Theory of researcher's own interest. A researcher can select his research title from his own area of interest or the field in which he has filled some theoretical knowledge. Then academic experience, classroom lectures, discussions, seminars, symposiums, and the exchange of ideas with the seniors and fellow students enlighten the researcher on the identification of the problem. A research scholar who is interested in human values can select a topic related to value education in the schools, different value dimensions found in students, inculcation of values among the high school students, etc. For an example, a study on the causes of the wastage and stagnation in rural primary schools. A study on the poor performance in English language of high school students in Tamil Nadu. A study on the poor achievement of boys in comparison to the girls in 12th class students in Tamil Nadu. Problems concerning with the day-to-day activities. A researcher can select his research title from the problems he faces in his life every day. A researcher can also select his research title from the day-to-day activities which benefits or harms the society. Technological and sociological changes bring forth the new problems and thus new avenues for researchers. So this also can be a clue to find out the research problem for the researcher. A study on the emerging leadership styles among college principals in Tirunelveli area. A study on the impact of e-learning of college students. Causes for the sudden high scores of government school students in Tamil Nadu public examinations, etc. What about the doubts about the present practices? The investigator may be dissatisfied with many of the present practices and tradition. So he may select such a problem that can help him to adopt new practice after research. Then professional experiences he needs. Classrooms, school, community, etc. are the places where researcher might have come across a number of conflicting experiences and difficulties. He will find the solutions of these problems through his research. Survey of the literature. The investigator can study a number of related literature like books, journals, newspapers, research reports, etc. to find out a problem. Educational surveys will also help to find a new topic for research. Then, research on one problem may suggest problems for further researches, so he can get from previous earlier theses. People would have pointed out what would be the future possibilities for researchers. Someone would have pointed out in their researches that the researcher can utilize. For an example, a study on the impact of parental involvement on the academic achievement of high school students. Maybe it was for the college students, now you can change it into the high school students. Likewise, a study on the impact of personal values on the communicative behavior of the teacher trainees. Perhaps the new researcher can study on the communicative behavior of degree students or postgraduate students, etc. The study on the influence of well-being on the self-efficacy of BEd trainees can be extended to a study on the influence of well-being on the self-efficacy of primary teachers. The study on the advantage of flipped classrooms in high schools of Tamil Nadu, etc. Empirical problems. In empirical problems, the social researchers answer questions or solve problems or offer suggestions on the basis of their findings or perceptions, observations, or undertakings to verify, accept, or reject a relationship among the variables. Then analytical problems. Analytical problems are merely definitional and not empirical. These are essentially linguistic and conceptual problems. The answer to these problems it depends on the meaning of the words in the sentences expressing them. Normative problems. Normative problems are questions, the answers of which depend primarily on value judgments. This may take either an evaluative or prescriptive form. A problem well put is half solved, a famous proverb. This saying highlights the importance of proper formulation of the selected problem. Formulation is nothing but transforming the selected topic into a scientifically researchable question. The formulation process involves the following: developing title, review of previous studies, scope of the study, defining the objectives of the study, formulation of the hypothesis, limitations of the study, etc. Hence, formulation gives a direction and a specific focus to the research effort. It prevents the researcher from indiscriminate, improper gathering of data. Before starting the actual research, the researcher needs to find the answers for the following questions. Is the problem researchable? There may be many problems that cannot be solved through the process of research. For an example, is it good to provide sex education to secondary class students, pre-adolescent students? This problem is based on personal values. Science cannot provide an answer to this question. So this cannot be selected for research. A problem must establish relationship between two or more variables. Hence, the above problem can be studied in the following manner. Effects of sex education on social life of girls and boys. Then the next question we can ask, is the problem new? A problem has to be new in all aspects. The researcher must avoid duplication. A researcher may be repeated on two grounds only. A research can be repeated on two grounds only: to verify the previous conclusions, to extend its applicability in an entirely new situation. Third question we can ask is this: is the problem feasible for the researcher? It may be a good one, but may not be feasible for the researcher due to its high cost, too lengthy to compete or to complete in the stipulated time, incompetency of the researcher, etc. Is the problem significant? The problem selected must be useful to the society. It must add a new knowledge to the existing one, and this knowledge should be valuable. The problem should express the relationship between two or more variables. The problem should be related clearly and unambiguously in the form of questions. There must be possibilities for empirical verification and testing. Then availability of a suitable guide and approval of the topic from the competent authority. The research problem should be a novel and original one. It should be neither too narrow or too vague. A good research problem should enrich knowledge or improve the current practices. Thank you very much, dear friends. God bless you abundantly. Let us meet in other video lectures related to our topic research. God bless you.